It's the 10th of July, 2025. And you've had a very, very, very novel and rare experience. Do you want to talk about that, Tracy? Do you want to go all over that?
You ask the questions and I'll just answer them as best as I can.
Well, that's the best thing. Right. You've had a very rare experience based on what... I mean, we can talk about the previous stuff, which obviously a long time ago, but that's a lot of detail in that. Why should anybody... This is one of my stock questions. Why should anybody pay any attention to what you have to say?
Well, it's going on. I've had too many experiences for it not to be real. And I've had witnesses as well.
Right.
So
well, let's get
something going on.
Let's get the fundamental experience so that people can sort of tag along with this. You died, and you remembered it, and you didn't get your...
I remember my previous life.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So people, past life regression. That's quite a few people understand that, but the difference is you remembered what happens afterwards, in between. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. The thing is, I remember dying on a ship. I used to be in charge of maps and measuring distances on maps on a ship. And I remember dying of a heart attack. And a woman came for me. And the side of the ship blew up. And I thought, get to heaven. But I wasn't taken to heaven. I was put on a UFO.
So what sort of ship are we talking about? Are we talking about something in World War II? When you said blew up, was it torpedoed or something?
No. What do you mean blew up? I didn't say that, did I?
You did. Or the wall or something blew up or whatever.
Oh, no, the wall lit up. The wall lit up bright and turned into a portal. And the woman took me through the portal, and I had to stand on this beam, like an invisible step. And she took me up, over the sea, out the ship, over the sea, up into a disc-shaped UFO.
Now, you didn't say that at the time, but I mean, we're talking a 7 or 8 years difference here. I think we're talking more. I think we're talking 12, maybe 14. Jesus. Anyway, you're up at Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
And what happened with this? Explain the whole experience, and I'll be quiet.
Well, basically, I remember working on a ship, and then I died of a heart attack. And as I took my last breath, a woman appeared beside me, and she told me not to look back at my dead body. But I looked back, and there was a man sitting in a chair. So I presume that was me. I'd just come out that body. And she told me to stand on this step. It was an invisible step. And I stood on the step, and all the side of the ship in the cabin, it all blew up into like a green glow. And it was like a portal, and then she took me up. Basically, I stood on this step, and she took me up. And I seen a great big disc-shaped UFO. And she put me on there. It was all confusing to me. I didn't know what was happening.
So continue.
Well, basically, when I got there, I noticed everybody was being all queued up in front of me to be questioned by Nordic-looking people. And they had technology that They had this big table, and they had to put the hand on this table, and everybody's hand had an implant in it, and that implant showed everybody's life throughout their life, and then there was questioned what they would have done different throughout their life. They were shown parts of their lives, good times, bad times, and then there was asked what they would have done different in that circumstance, and there was asked questions like what they'd done to improve the planet and what they'd done to, like, you know, help humanity. And all this information was put on a big database. And then they'd, once they'd been questioned, they was taken away, either to visit the loved ones. Them that didn't have loved ones went into this room, and they had to lie down on this bed, like a metal bed. And then they'd shut the door, and then there was like a light that penetrated the room. And then when the light turned off, the person would come up off the bed, be taken out of the room. But they, like if an elderly person went in there, basically they was taken into a room, the room lit up with them in it, like a big bright white light. And then when the light faded, they was taken out of the room. But if they was taken in as an old person, they'd come out as a young adult. But the clothes was different as well. And then they'd be all dazed and confused. And then they was taken and put into another queue of people ready for the reincarnation pods. But on the way to the reincarnation pods, they had animals all on display, like on plinths. They had lions and monkeys, but there wasn't caged animals. There was like sedated sort of thing. But I tried touching I did touch one of the lions, and I got told off for touching the animals on display. But they had all high-tech equipment in there.
When you said you touched the animal, what did you feel, or did the animal move or react, or what was it like?
Yeah, I went in the queue because what had happened was when I first got on this spaceship with the woman, I was queued up to talk to the people, the Nordic people that were standing behind a big desk. But I got bored of waiting. I don't like queues, so I walked off. And that's where I got into trouble, because I was walking off and I was told to stay with this woman and wait for my turn to be interviewed at the table. But because I had a big ego at the time, I thought, well, I'm not having a woman tell me what to do. So
because
I walked
at
off
that time,
and I was like looking around.
Was that because you were programmed as a man? Is that right?
I believe I was a man in my past life, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the name Sebastian and the year 1666 as well, and being on a ship and delivering horses overseas. And yeah, it's just looking back, I can remember everything, but it all makes sense. But what I ought to do is categorise everything and make it make sense. So basically, I was took off the ship. I died. I was taken off the ship. I was put in a queue to talk to these people, these Nordic-looking people. I exited the queue because I wasn't going to be told what to do. And I looked around the spaceship and I was watching what was going on. And I saw people coming out of this room that was all lit up. And then I noticed the clothes was changed, and the whole physique, everything about them had changed. It was strange to me. And I got to have a look around anyway and see what was going on.
So in
And
what way? In what way were they changed? I mean,
well, like if an elderly person went in, they would come out as a young adult, like somebody about 19, 20 years old. But the clothes had changed as well.
and when you say changed, it moved to what a different era or what? Or and did all the change? Did all the changes?
Like the males had got like this white nappy looking thing on. It was strange. I thought, well, they putting me in one of them sort of thing. And the females, they was putting like a white night dress. And well, they was all queued up anyway. And I went and had a look round. And I went into a room. So that was on the left-hand side. And there was a man with blue eyes. I knew his eyes was blue because I was messing with his eyes, trying to wake him up. He was lying on this metal bed. And I tried to wake him up. I was messing with his eyes, his eyelids, trying to wake him up. And he wouldn't wake up. And then when I did eventually get to wake him up, Alien Greys came into the room with this man. He was dressed like a doctor with a long white coat on. And they told me to get out the room.
And what sort of
Could have been
room?
Travis Walton on that bed. Well, I messed with his eyelids, and eventually, when I did get him to wake up, he was panicking, and these alien greys came in the room, and they all told me to get out the room. So I went out the room, but I thought, I'm not going to leave him there. I'm going to go back in. So I went to go back in the room, and I stuck this like metal trolley in front of me, full of it like medical equipment, to block the entrance at the door. So I went for a walk around, and I was in the queue with the people that the animals on display. And I looked forward, and I noticed the pods. So I thought I'll go into one of them pods because everybody was excited to go into these pods. And it gets a bit confusing after that because
Take your time. Do what you say have to do.
Was protected by an Egyptian man. And he was all dressed up in, the old-fashioned Egyptian clothes with that skirt thing on, And he had this spear in his hand. And every time people pushed forward in the queue, he'd threaten them with his spear to protect the pods. So he wouldn't let me in the pods, so I went for a walk again. So I went into this other room. There was this room just to the right-hand side of the room that Travis Walton-looking man was in. And I went in there, and there was like an egg-shaped chair. So I sat down on the egg-shaped chair, and I looked up, and I could see stars, like the ceiling. You could see through the ceiling of the spacecraft, and you could see the stars in the sky. Well, an older-looking Nordic, like an older Nordic-looking man, he came into the room, asked me what I was doing in there, and I was sitting in the chairs, messing with the chair, and he sent for two shadow people to come and collect me. So two shadow people come and collected me, and they took me to this praying mantis-looking man.
Oh.
Praying mantis-looking man. He said, Why have you broke the rules? Why didn't you stay in the queue? And then he says, look into my eyes. but I refused to look into his eyes. I was looking at the floor and looking at my feet. And because I'd done that, he got the 2 shadow people to put me on a grid for punishment. So I went on this grid. They said I've got to go on this grid, and they said, will you go on it? And I was like a bit hesitant at first, and then I took on the challenge. I says, yeah, I'll go on the grid.
What did this grid look like? Was it small sets of squares or what?
Squares. It was squares. But it went out quite far distance, and there was people on the grid further out, but there was like falling off the grid, and you could hear them screaming and dropping off the grid. And as soon as I got on the grid, there's make a movie to explain it better, because like talking about it's more difficult than actually experiencing it. The grid, once you stood on it, it had dropped from underneath your feet, and as it went into a cross, do you know, as the squares attached to each other, when you got to the centre of the grid, the bit that you'd stood on, it would drop from underneath your feet. And that's why other people was falling off it, because they stood on the grid too long. It's I'd have to explain it. It's a bit difficult to. Basically, you walk on this grid, and then you get to the cross, and then you've got a couple of seconds to move before the grid.
Yeah.
It was like a game. It was confusing.
Was it like a mat, like Alibaba or whatever it is, like a magic carpet?
The grid, it was like about as wide as my foot, but there was like big squares, and you had to get from where it crossed like that to that side, and then the grid would drop from underneath you, and then you'd have a few seconds to move from that spot to another spot. And the challenge was to get out furthest as I could on the grid without falling off. But the challenge was there was giant isopods that would rub up against your legs and cause you to be off balance.
Yes.
So that could cause you to fall. So basically I moved fast. I went through the grid, went out furthest I could. There's people falling off the grid. It was a bit of a distraction, but when they fell, I don't know where they went. But I got out furthest as I could on the grid, and then I noticed the grid wasn't dropping from underneath me anymore.
Right.
And then the 2 shadow people that put me on the grid in the first place.
Yeah.
They turned it off, and then I noticed the floor was just all black, as if it was just like glass. And they called me to come in like from where the grid was, and I said no, because I made me come in back into the spaceship, and then they says I'd passed the test, and because I didn't fall off the grid, I'd passed the test. So they made me go back into the grid, and I was hesitant about getting back into the UFO. I didn't want to go in the UFO. I was happy in that grid area. And
ignore me if I walk and check things or get a cup of tea. Just keep talking, sweetheart. This is very exciting. I want to hear it all.
I think I ought to make a movie about it. Really, it's just hard to put into words.
Well, you're describing it very well.
Making a movie about it, but it's actually putting what was visual into words. I have difficulties.
Well, I would have difficulties. I'm going to put the tea on again.
Go on then, go make a
Yeah.
cup of tea. I'll wait for you. And
Yeah, but just keep talking. I'm listening to you. This is
have you
fascinating.
understood everything from up to now?
I want to hear everything.
Well, basically, they called me into the UFO and they said I've got free run of the
Now,
UFO.
I have to say that the last time I don't think you mentioned UFO, but you've
Yeah,
had
it
a
was a
lot
UFO.
of years between that and then and now.
I didn't mention it before because I was frightened of the ridicule from others.
Yeah.
I was worried about what my family and everybody else would
Yeah,
think of
I
what I
have to
said.
say
But
that
it was definitely a
you did have a
UFO.
lot of pressure then at the time,
Yeah, yeah.
which made it very courageous for you.
When I went on to the UFO, I had free run of the UFO. And then I went back into the queue where the people was, where all the animals was on display. And they refused to let me in the pod again. And then I was curious why they wouldn't let me into the pod. And he pointed at my clothes, and I looked down, and I was dressed like a shadow person. And they basically told me to go and sit next to the Greek people. Yes, well, the Egyptians, they was in charge of the pods. As one pod entered, another one exited the. It was like a ride, like a game.
Could you describe the pods?
There was big circle like an egg, but it was big enough for 2 or 3 people to get in there. It had a ledge on the inside, and it would shut but close at the top. Basically, I got put back on the UFO. I didn't want to be there, so I had a look around, and I could see all the different people that was on the UFO. I could see like children that had been abducted and they was being trained up like schooling. And I was taken around I looked around the UFO and I saw all different races of people on there.
Could you
Like
go into
Indians all dressed
could you
up in
describe
like red and
these?
gold.
Could you
Huh?
describe these in better detail?
What the children?
Well, the
What
human children, alien children. What sort
there
of different types of aliens?
was human children all round a table talking to this woman, and she was getting them to colour with crayons, like houses and stuff. Like she'd say to them, "Can you draw my house?" And they'd be like toddlers, 3, 4 years old, something like that. And they'd have to draw their houses and show this woman. And she'd be talking to somebody with this circle medallion. She'd have a circle medallion, a red medallion on her chest. That had a chain round it, and it would glow up. And she was talking to somebody directly about the children on there. And I went round and I had a look, and I was just watching what folks was doing. And there was basically about 10 children around a like big square table, and a woman, like a teacher,
I
telling
mean,
them to
what
colour
age?
in houses and
I mean, describe it. What sort of age? I mean, was it a middle-aged lady?
a middle-aged woman, long dark hair,
What sort of
and
clothing?
the children. There was just like a play school. It was strange.
So, I mean, are you talking sort of middle class, middle of England woman or what? Like you would have had in Wolverhampton.
Just looked like an average woman. She didn't look nothing special. She didn't look nothing special. She just looked like an average person you'd pass on the street, sort of thing. Just nothing stood out about her. She was just looking after these like kids that was round the table, telling them to draw houses using crayons. And the kids was just all together as if they was in a classroom.
In other words, it would be a bit like what you do at preschool, maybe.
Yeah. Just kids sitting around, just with the crayons, just colouring in houses that they'd drawn.
Now people are going to be asking: Are you sucking on a stick or what?
Oh, a vape.
Oh, it's a vape. Bloody
Yeah,
hell,
vape.
Jesus God! I thought it was some
Putting
kind
back
of
on the cigarette.
alien device or something like that.
Yeah, I was put on the UFO and I went back in the queue with the people all queuing up to go into the pods, and there was this Egyptian man stopping people from getting into the pods unless he get permission for them to go into the pods. Well, when it was my turn to go into the pod, because I'd waited with these people and I'd touched the lion and I got told off for touching the lion, and I was touching all the animals on display, and then I got told off for doing that as well. But I queued up, and when it was my turn to go into the pod, because everybody looked excited to go into these pods. When it was my turn, the Egyptian man said, "No, you can't go in." And I said, "Why?" I says, "I've waited a long time. Why can't I go in the pods like everybody else?" And then he pointed at me, and I looked down, and I was wearing a hooded robe like a shadow person. And he says, "Go and sit by the Greek men." So he parted me from this group of people trying to get into the pods, and I had to sit with these Greek men. And I says to the Greek men, I says, that man would not let me in to the pod. And they said, "Your turn will come. Just sit down on the large rocks. Just wait for your turn to come." So I stood up and I was talking to these Greek-looking men. There was about 5 of them, but there was one main man that was talking to, and he'd got like a what they called tablet, like a square tablet with carvings out of it.
Were they Greek letters? Could you tell the difference?
Yeah. They just look like symbols, like triangles and wavy lines, and
But I mean, I'm
I
saying,
still,
do you know what the Greek language looks like? But it would be in
no,
Greek.
it looked like hieroglyphs, like the Egyptians would have. It just looked like symbols to me. I couldn't understand it. Well, I was reading this tablet. It was like made out of stone, like white stone. They was reading it, looking at me, and then discussing between themselves telepathically, so I couldn't hear them, to discuss what they was going to do with me. So I says, "Can I go into the pod now?" And they kept saying, "No, wait your turn." So I sat on the white rock, and I was there for, it seemed like, a very, very long time. And every time I asked them, "Can I go on the rock?" or if I stood up, they'd say, "Sit down and wait your turn."
Sit down
So
and wait for your turn.
Yeah. So I got a bit annoyed with them.
Well, I'm surprised at that because you've shown a lot of independence and you're walking about the places. If you own it, Tracy.
Well, I was annoyed with them for telling me I could not go in the pods because I'd waited a long time to go into the pods. And then when I got there, I was told to sit on the rock next to the Greek people. So I discussed it with the Greek people. They said, "Just sit down on the rock and wait your turn." So every time I stood up, they'd say, "Sit down." So I got a bit annoyed with them. So I knew that they could hear me, like hear what I was thinking, like telepathically. Every time I thought, "Oh, I'm going to get up and just get into a pod,"
Sit down.
they sit
Hey,
down.
you over there. Sit down.
So what I'd done was clear my mind, clear my memory, clear my mind. I saw a girl going into a pod, and then I saw my chance. So, because I learned to move fast on the grid, I used that technique to jump up off the rock, jump into the pod as it was closing. But there's a weird thing that happened because I could see myself like outside my body. I do that a lot. If I'm in a stressful situation, I can actually like have an outer body experience looking in on myself. But I got into this pod. It was closing. The Greek men ran towards the pod that was closing because I'd been watching these pods. And they says, like, once it shut, they couldn't open them. But I'd sat there such a long time watching these pods. They basically give me this job, sit down and just watch what's going on around you. So I noticed every time a pod shut, it would go out and then another pod would return. So I had my chance. I saw this girl go into this pod. And then I thought to myself, I've had to die to get this information. So I wonder what would happen if I went back to the earth and just told people what to expect after they died. And that was like a conversation I was having in my own head sort of thing. And the Greek men was like, get that out your brain sort of thing. Get that out your head. You're not going to do that. And I noticed that they could read my mind. So I blanked everything in my mind, saw my chance, and I ran. I jumped up and ran and got into the pod. As the pod was closing, I could hear the Greek people say, no, it's not their turn sort of thing. And I just ducked down and hid in this pod with this girl. This girl looked confused and...
I mean, were they in some kind of
were
they in some kind of trance by that time?
No, I was just... Well, the girl in the pod with me,
yeah,
she looked like she was like didn't know what was going on around her, sort of thing. She looked confused. I just jumped into a pod as the pod was closing, and the pod closed, and I could hear the Egyptians and the Greek men saying, "Get them out! Get them out! It's not their turn. Get them out!" And there was panicking around this pod. But I knew once the pod had closed, because I'd watched them, the pod would go out of the UFO. So basically, I came here without permission.
Now, what exactly happened? Why is this a big deal?
Why is it a big deal? I came here without permission. I came here before my time. I should not be here now. I should probably be here in the distant future. Because their time's different on the UFO. See, several minutes like there is like 2 hours here. The time different, it's just different. Time, it's like time doesn't exist there. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's like when I had missing time in 2010, I had several minutes missing time. But I looked at the clock, 2 hours had gone by. Everything's just completely different.
I mean, are you still in that sort of state, for want of a better term?
What? I still have missing time, yeah?
Yeah.
But I'm visited by shadow people and they attack me.
Now explain all that. What do you mean by shadow person?
They look like Grim Reapers. And they've got glowing red eyes. And they're about 6, 7, 8 foot tall, something like that. And they've got like crow-like hands with long black nails. Yeah, they scratch me, they attack me, I think it's because I came here without permission.
Well,
I was
the thing
attacked
is that
months ago
were
and
other
it's damaged
people.
all my legs. I have to go into hospital now and get my veins in my legs sorted out.
So run that by me again.
I was attacked a few months ago in my bed
With what? By what?
by a shadow person and one that was invisible.
Have you had a lot of those kind of issues?
Well, I've got a scar on my head. The attack started when I was about 8 years old. I was thrown across my bedroom floor when I was 8 years old. And I've got the scar on my head now.
Yeah.
And it damaged all my upper jaw, and that's why I've got crooked teeth. Yeah, I've been attacked a few times, and one caused a hernia because it ripped out my stomach. Them all like it
No,
was
the
a
old,
different one.
sort
that
of
done that,
rip out
though.
your stomach routine thing. Well, what exactly do you mean by that? Sounds really horrendous.
Well, the first time I was attacked, I was 8 years old. There was like a creature on the bedroom window, but it was all like made out of ice. But it looked like it was as big as a newborn baby, and it was like all spiky. And my twin sister saw it, and like we was joking around, called it Jack Frost. But my twin sister was scared of it. So me being a tomboy, I ripped it up, like I smashed it all up. It was on my bedroom window. I smashed it all up. It melted on my older sister's bed. But I noticed my hands felt greasy. But I never said anything to my older sister. My older sister was sleeping at my nan's house across the road at the time. But when my sister came back the following day, she lay in her bed and then she said she'd got spiders running all over her body. And I found that funny because we checked the bed. There was no spiders in her bed, but she was crying. She was hysterical and just screaming the place down, saying the spiders running all over my body. And then I linked it to that ice creature being melted onto a bed. And the following day after that, we was sent to bed early because we had to get up early for school. And
What age are you when
me and
this
my
happened?
sister, pardon?
What age are you when this happened?
I was 8 years old. Me and my twin sister was sent to bed early with my older sister that had the spiders crawling all over her body.
Now, was this twin the other person in the babe that was born? You were both born
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah. And it was her soul that I got into the pod with,
Yeah.
but she looked completely different. See how you look now is your genetics of your parents here now. And as you looked back then in a previous life, you looked like your parents previous.
Right.
There's a lot to this. It's not
Well,
just
we're here to find out all about it, Tracy.
basically I was attacked by someone the following night. I was picked up off the bottom of Christine's bed, my older sister. I was picked up off the bottom of her bed and thrown across the floor, and it cut all my head open, broke my nose,
God.
broke my upper jaw.
Oh,
I was
dear.
8 years old. There was blood absolutely everywhere.
Jesus. I'm not good with all this.
I have to put everything into perspective.
Yes. It's
When
very
we started
important.
off, I was on a ship. I died. I was taken on a UFO.
You're talking about a steamer ship, like a cargo ship or a sailing ship.
It was like a pirate ship. It was like a big wooden pirate ship sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was like a big wooden pirate ship that I lived on and worked on. It was delivering horses and hogs over the seas. And then I remember being taken onto a UFO, me not standing there in the queue because I had a big ego and I wasn't having anybody tell me what to do. So I had to walk around the ship, and then I was put on a grid for breaking rules.
Explain this grid, and how you were able to use it.
The only thing I could think of is like scaffolding. You remember the olden days when they used to make the buildings and they'd got them big metal scaffolding?
Yeah.
But they used to put it in like a square-shaped grid to put make floors out of and stuff. I don't know if you'd remember that.
Well, I think that they use something like that now, don't they?
It was like a big It was like a big grid, but it was all lit up. I really think I ought to make a movie, because then that would put everything into perspective and put everything in the right time. And so you want to know about the grid?
I want to understand everything. When you say something, I want the details, what it looks like, how it works, what powers it, who builds them, and can I buy some on eBay?
No, it's all high technical stuff. It's just like I said, I think I ought to make a movie about it, because it can get confusing.
This is part of that process. Have you written a book about it?
They put you on the grid. It's a balanced grid, and if you fall off, then you go into the abyss.
Right. That's sort of woo.
Yeah. Well, you fall off, and I don't know where you end up. It's just blackness underneath the grid. I managed to stay on the grid because I found out how it worked. I found out that if I walk on the grid and go at the cross where it crosses,
yeah,
I'm allowed there for a few seconds before I have to cross again, before it will drop down into the abyss. So you could only walk on what was there.
Yes.
If that makes sense. But the challenge was to get further out on the grid as you could without falling off the grid. Well, everybody had fell off the grid by the time I'd got to the far end.
And that was
No, I was the only one left on the grid.
So that was lights out for them. Were they finished? Were they wiped out?
They all went into the abyss. There was, I think it was everybody that had broken rules and they were sent on the grid as punishment. And I was put on there for punishment for breaking the rules, for not going through the process that they wanted. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I ended up the last one on the grid. Everybody else had fell off. So I'd won. I'd passed the test. So they allowed me to go back into the UFO and have free run of the UFO. So I went round and I had a look at everything, saw how everything was working. But I decided then I wanted to go into the pods that everybody was getting excited to go into. Because to me, it was like a ride at a fun fair. I mean, I didn't know what a fun fair was back in them days, but...
Oh, you poor girl.
But everybody seemed excited to get into these pods, and I was just curious where these pods take you. But when it was my turn to go into the pods, I refused to go into the pod, told to sit with the Greek people. And then I was told to watch the pods, so I was just watching the pods. I suppose they was giving me a job of watching the pods. But my clothes at the time had changed from what I was wearing on the ship to hooded robe.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was dressed like a shadow person.
Yeah.
So when I went to go into the pod, I was refused to go in because I was dressed as a shadow person. So to me, they'd given me a job as a shadow person, a djinn. but I tried to get back as a normal person. But the normal people had been through the process and the light room and had the memory deleted to be put back into the pods. But because I skipped all that, I went straight onto the grid. And then I went to the Egyptian people.
Yeah. And where were these Egyptian people?
Chance, and I got into the pod, and then the pod brought me down out the sky, and I saw my mother through a window. And there was a house. I saw my mother through a window. I could see my older sister Christine and my older brother. They was only little at the time, but I felt the love radiating from my mother. It's strange. It's like I had the chance to see my mum before I was born.
Yeah.
I came down out of the UFO and I looked up and I thought, wow, I've just come out of there, sort of thing. It was a great big disc-shaped, it must have been the mothership. It was massive. Great big disc-shaped, and it's got beautiful, like orangey, creamy looking, like warm glow to it.
Yeah.
And windows all the way around it. Beautiful. Well, I'd floated down in the pod with the girl. The pod disappeared. The girl disappeared, like I was invisible. But I could see what was going on around me, and I went to this window and I could see my mother to be, and my older sister and my brother in the living room. And there was playing in the living room. But I felt the love radiating off my mum, and I thought, well, I'd love to be a part of that sort of thing. The next thing I know, there was movement to my left-hand side. I looked up, saw the UFO, thought, wow, I'll just come out of that. There was movement to my left-hand side. I was dragged by an invisible force into this man's body. That was my dad. He was in the kitchen smoking a cigarette, building a... He was in the kitchen and smoking a cigarette and building a fish tank with like red goldfish in there. Talking to my mum at the sink, but I could see through his eyes.
Yeah.
And I was just fascinated because he was smoking as well. And I mean, that's probably why I'm... I was just fascinated by him smoking because there was nothing like that where I come from.
Fire coming out of your mouth, that kind of a thing.
What was that?
Fire coming out of your mouth, smoke, yeah.
Yeah, the smoke. There was nothing like that where I come from. So I was just fascinated by him smoking. And I could see through his eyes. Then the next memory, everything goes black. And then I'm in a dark, noisy place and I feel trapped again. And then my next memory is being in a cot next to a baby and sleeping a lot and feeling tired.
Yeah.
And that's how my life begun, really. It was just... And since then I've been visited by shadow people, male and female, Nordic-looking people, being attacked by interdimensional beings. It's just been crazy. It's just...
Yeah.
No,
I think this is fascinating. So where do you want to go with this?
I just wanted people to know what to expect once they died, because I hear people saying, oh, you get to heaven, it's fantastic, I died, I went to heaven.
No.
A load of nonsense.
I think it's...
You've taken on a UFO. Well, my experience,
as above,
I was
so below.
on a UFO. I wasn't taken to heaven. I wish I was taken to heaven. But my experience was I was put on a UFO and I could see all the technology going on around me, and how basically I was just living, like existing, and I got bored there. That's why I came back. It wasn't just only to tell the people what was happening after death. Basically, I've just come back like I was a baby in the in a cot next to another baby. That was my twin sister, Vanessa.
Now, she was born with you at that time.
She must have been. I was in the cot next to her.
Yeah, okay.
So, but to me, I still felt the same person.
But she
as I
doesn't
did
remember
on the
anything.
ship.
Where did you
I just
lose
looked at
memory? Did you lose memory?
I didn't lose memory,
Yeah.
but the only memory I did lose was like certain things, like about my past life, like on the ship. Because I had a friend on the ship. It was a young boy. I took him under my wing, sort of thing. I was
Yeah.
looking after him. And I used to call him Boy.
Boy.
And I remember the name Sebastian.
Ah.
And I remember living in this cabin. I was like about 60 years old. I was living in this cabin on a ship. And I was measuring distances.
Yes.
I presume it was for work. But the thing that annoys me is I can't remember the name of the ship.
Right.
But I can remember the name of my horse.
Well, again, was this ship a sailing type ship, or was it in the steam age?
The only thing I could explain it was a big wooden ship. It was like a dark brown, almost black in colour.
I mean, I'm trying to see, was it be like one of those wonderful schooners, which, you know, like you had going to Bristol with the tea and all that? You know, multi-sails or what?
Yeah, it had sails on it, yeah.
But or was a much earlier ship, like in the Middle Ages?
Like, to me, the typical pirate ship, like all wooden. And it had, in my cabin, there was like a little bed in there, and there was like a fireplace, like, and a pot where I could do my cooking. Like a big black, like witch's cauldron pot thing in the fireplace. And I used to make stews on that, and I used to carve wood into spoons and stuff like that. And I'd let the boy light up, like collect wood when we stopped off to collect food and alcohol and water. I'd allow the boy to collect fruit and stuff. And
are you able to bring your camera down, sweetheart?
Oh, sorry.
Or do you want to reposition that a little bit easier so your arm doesn't get?
In my hand, and I'm like,
you're going to freeze. It's
balancing. My arm's going dead.
Do you want to just spend a second just trying to make that a bit easier for yourself?
I'll be all right.
Yeah. I'm getting another thing of water here.
To cut a long story short, I remember the end of my past life, working on a ship. I remember dying. I was taken on a UFO. I had to pass a test.
Describe the test.
Without permission. Pardon?
What did you just say there? You did the test.
The test on the grid.
I'm interested in more on this grid thing.
Basically, when you walked on it, it drops from underneath you, so you had to move quickly before you fell. Like I said, I think I'd have to make a movie to explain it all.
Have you got any drawings on all this?
Oh, I've done drawings. I've drawn the inside of the UFO, the layout. I've drawn the Egyptian man, what he looked like, who was in charge of the white pods.